Okay, thank you very much. That was fascinating. I'm going to be I'll be informing people by email about the the neighbourhood plan meeting in June. We're setting a date. I've just got a couple of things to do, and then to check out, and then once I've done that, we'll set a date and we'll inform everyone. We will update people through this forum, but most of the neighbourhood plan business will take place in the neighbourhood plan meetings, and obviously everyone is welcome. Please get involved. And if you've got people who don't come to this forum, don't know about the forum, or don't know about the plan, please just spread the word. We've got a video on already on the website from the last meeting, when the head of planning explained what they are, so people can do their research. They can be very valuable if you're part of church groups or neighbourhood watch areas or residence groups or anything like that, business groups, landlord groups, anything. Please bring it up in the meeting and try and get people to come along to the neighbourhood plan group and get involved. That's brilliant. I think I'll move on next. We've got the police here. I think, and they'd like to give us an update. We didn't have them here last time, so I'd like to expect Setchel to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. In relation to Inspector Setchel, obviously Alan's my first name, happy with that. I'm not going to stand here and spout off a load of stats, because I expect you've already got some questions for me. All I want to really bring to your attention is, in relation to the police service, we operate a performance year from April through to April. So April just gone, we look at how well has the force performed, and we look at that over the predominantly over the previous 5 years as well. So in relation to my section, during the performance year of 14 through to 15, it was some really good figures. And I'm getting to that age where I've got to put glasses on.
What's the section?
Okay, for those that weren't here last time round, my name's Alan Setchel. I'm the East Bournemouth Neighbourhood Inspector, so I'm in charge of policing for this area. It was Chris Weeks. So, okay, in relation to total crime, we had 4,685 crimes reported to us, which reflects a reduction of 3% from the previous year. But in relation to the last 5 years, that represents the lowest number of reported crimes that Dorset Police has ever reported back to the Home Office. So we've seen the lowest crimes over the last 12 months compared to the last 5 years. That is a result of the police work, the partnership work, everyone putting together the community and everything. I'm not going to stand here and claim that for myself, because it's a whole corporate approach. But I'd just like to say thanks for everyone involved. Some of the key things within those reductions, particularly in relation to burglary dwelling, there were 281 less burglaries compared to the same period last year. That's 281 people who have not come back to their home and found their home basically ransacked and property stolen. And again, that is the lowest number of dwelling burglaries since these are over the last 5 years. In relation to theft from motor vehicle,
281 less than what?
281 less offences reported.
Or how many in total?
If you want the total figures for last year, we had, theft from motor vehicle, we had 404 offences reported. And that reflected almost a 30% reduction. Additionally, in relation to one of my visions when I first arrived here to try and impact on the area, I also wanted to introduce the use of volunteers. And I've now happily stand here and say that I've got 8 regular special constables to support the current officers based at Boscombe to provide that additional police high visible presence on the street. That's 8 additional officers that we've now got. They provide on average over 35 hours per month to provide you that extra presence that I can able to give to you an impact on these crime figures. That's where I'll probably finish and draw the line, unless anyone has got some questions now, because I don't want to bamboozle you with stats. I'd rather take questions.
Inspector, you talk about the crimes being lower, and I understand that's a good figure. But as an architect, I'll tell you why some of those figures are lower. Number one, houses are now harder to break into because of the security systems they have in them, and cars are very much harder to steal and break into because of the security systems they've put in them too. We all need to work together, I understand that. The problem is, I'm afraid, you said you were in charge of the PCSOs as well. On the 21st of April last year, I got assaulted seriously in the Crescent. There were about 20 witnesses. I still to speak to the police officer who's dealing with the case. I've had my statement taken and I've had a cursory mail shot to be told they'll tell me if they hear anything else, even though there was CCTV evidence which I've looked on the internet, I've looked on your website, I've looked on the Echo website, and everybody else's assault is on there, but not mine. I've spoken to you PCSOs, and on Saturday 28th of February, I spoke to a PCSO, and a couple of months ago I spoke to a PCSO when I found graffiti in the gents' loos at Sovereign Centre that had a connotation with regard to soliciting. I think you're aware of it. I've been told you're aware of it, where the graffiti is on the gents' loos on the cubicle inside doors. As I left the toilets, I approached two PCSOs in the main arcade and told them what I'd seen, that there was telephone numbers, there was price lists, and there was names, which they said they were going to deal with. However, I was a bit reluctant to believe them because they did not take any details, didn't ask what doors it was, nothing. So I followed them. They walked right past the gents' loos, they walked right past the management officers for the Sovereign Centre and stood outside the 99p store talking to each other. I then saw what I called as a mature officer, and I reported it to him, in which he called the cleaner down to clean it off. About 2 weeks later, the numbers are back up. I'm not quite sure what dealing with the case is, but if I had been told that I'd been putting something on a wall and I'd been visited by the police, I would not go back and put it on there. So I'm not quite sure whether you visited, but I'm not happy with that PCSO. And though I contacted your professional standards and they told me they would get Mr. Weeks to contact me, I've had no contact whatsoever.
Okay, lots in there. I'll try and answer some of those specifics. Yes, obviously, like I stood here and said, I'm not going to take the complete success in relation to those crime reports. So yes, there has been greater sort of like security measures for houses and security measures on vehicles. One thing I will say is, certainly from January this year, which doesn't fall within overall from January through to here, this date, we have had an experience where there has been an increase of theft from motor vehicles, and working with our intelligence departments and all the other departments, to date we've arrested a total of 8 suspects. Since we've arrested those 8 suspects, the amount of reported crime around those vehicles went down from 20 per week down to 2 per week. Okay, so I'm not standing here saying that it's all of my staff and our work. I'm standing here saying as a collective, that is how we are achieving our results. In relation to your specifics, I can't stand here and I won't stand here talking about your specifics. Happy to talk to you outside this forum around your complaint. But I can stand here and say that my expectations from my PCSOs is that if any one of you approach them and report a crime, they should take some details, and they are not trained to take crime. They're there to actually provide that high visible presence. That is their main purpose. My expectation would be that they take your details and a police officer would then contact you and take that crime. Okay?
Thank you.
I suppose everybody's aware that Bournemouth have just gone up in the Football League. So that is now going to bring the likes of Chelsea, Millwall, Liverpool fans here. What are the police going to do to keep us safe here?
Okay.
Beg your pardon? Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Thank you.
Much to people's probably disgrace, I'm not a football man, never have been, never will be. However, obviously it didn't miss my attention the fact that the local team has gone up, so they should be congratulated for that impact or effect. In relation to how am I going to try and manage that, I've already got my dedicated analyst for this area to start as soon as the season starts to map any offences in relation to criminal damage, in relation to theft from, in relation to graffiti, so that if I actually start seeing an increase on the periods that the games are being played, I will then go back to my senior officers and be able to provide them with suitable evidence to request that I get additional resources allocated to this area during the period of the games. However, what I am advised is that the type of fan that comes down from Premier League, apparently they like to keep safe their season tickets. So the type of fan that historically has come down to Bournemouth have been perhaps from a different class, I don't know. But utterly I've been reassured to some degree that we shouldn't be so concerned about that impact.
You do have a police football team then? Yeah, just you do have a police football team as well, a team that is specifically focused on football, and you're a football officer and stuff. I know the Food Pub Watch we've had contact. Yeah, okay. There's one thing I wouldn't mind asking before I come to you. There's just police response times. Just, had a couple of people mention to me that it's taken a long time for police to attend certain things. There was something in the Echo about someone who fell from a balcony, and the ambulance took over half an hour to get there. And I think the police it took a while, and there was someone spoke to me yesterday in a business saying that they rang an offence in, and it was about half an hour. I know police, I think it's been brought up before, but I know as police is becoming more stretched, you know, and you prioritise your things. I mean, how does that affect Boscombe specifically?
Okay, I'm not going to talk about the ambulance department, but certainly in relation to policing, again, I won't stand here and try and hide behind the figures or the stats. We are entering another period of financial cuts, and as a result of that, you will see potentially a further reduction in the number of police officers across Dorset. That's the challenge that I face, as do all the other partners. All I can say is that our senior officers and I am completely committed to try and ensure that we maximise our available resources to attend critical incident reports that come into the police. We have got what we call a total resource management protocol, where we have a chief inspector in the control room 24 hours a day, and if there is an urgent requirement for attendance, they will prioritise the very nearest police officer to attend that job. So what I'm saying is, if, for example, local police officers are fully committed with jobs, we will find the next available officer to attend that incident to deal with what has ever been reported.
Thank you. I'll just like to say I have written to Martin Underhill a couple of forums ago where some issues were raised about unreported, unrecorded crime, which I have written to him about. He couldn't come tonight. I'm hoping he'll come to the next meeting, and he can also, I've asked him to talk about the changes that are happening within the police force, the sort of joining together and stuff, and also to talk about issues with 101 and update us on how that's performing. Now, if I just take the question over here.
You quoted the figure of 4,685 reported crimes in the last year. Laudable 3% reduction. 2-point question. Firstly, is that 3% due to the lack of confidence in the police, i.e. people aren't reporting petty crimes? And the second part of my question is, of your 4,695 reported crimes, how many resulted in arrest and conviction?
Okay. In relation to the first one, in relation to trust and confidence, I don't know the answer to that. All I can tell you is the facts, and that is what we have got, and that is what's been presented from our head of department that provides the stats for the police. If you look at our public confidence figures for East Bournemouth that we get from a quarterly survey that goes out, other than keeping victims updated with the crimes, I have got, I think on average, something like 80-90% public satisfaction. So I'm reasonably confident that that figure reflects the good work that I've already cited. So I'm pretty confident we have got confidence, and that's certainly reflected from my staff who are out there working with the community, and we do get positive feedback from residents saying that they are pleased with what we're doing at the moment. In relation to your question about how many, quoted correctly. Okay, it's just short of 30% that ended up with someone being either dealt with through the courts or through the out-of-court disposal systems. So that was 1 in every 3 crime was detected.
Thank you. Question here.
A week last Saturday when Bournemouth came through on buses, which was terrific, I was rather concerned that there were few police people around Sea Road. There were gridlocks everywhere. There were children running around. There was a few women shouting at each other. They were wearing pink covers. I spoke to somebody with a BBC hat on, Bournemouth Borough Council. I said, "Where are the police?" He said, "Well, they were here earlier." I said, "Well, where are they now?" This was about 10 to 11. There's nobody to be seen. 65,000 people on the beach. I talked to some people who were on the beach and they said they didn't see much presence. Could you tell me how many police were actually there and what did they do?
I'm certainly not going to stand here and say I know, because I don't know. What I can say to you is that it is, or it was, what it actually turned out to be, which was an extremely low-level public event where everyone was celebrating the success of Bournemouth. Actually, do we need the police there? I'm unaware of any real criminal offences that were reported to me at the time, and I'm really reasonably satisfied that the level of policing that was given was a proportionate requirement for that type of event.
I have to disagree, because a policeman's job is not just to keep the criminals away. A policeman has got to be a social person there too, but just be even a smile on his face, which would be lovely to see, that there's a happy presence. You don't have to be there trapping people, but it's nice to see that there is somebody there. If you wanted somebody, you could say, "Oh, there he is." Not think, "Oh, I've got to dial 999 or 111 or whatever." And when I did phone head office at Winthrop, yes, we think there are some people there. I said, "Yeah, well, how many?" "Oh, I can't really tell you. If you've got a complaint, put it in writing." Thank you.
Okay, the only thing I'd like to say on that, because I'm obviously going to be coming to these forums quite often, when I took over this post, all I got was that the community wanted positive police action on the crimes that impact on them. I haven't at this day received any complaint around fans celebrating the success of their, going up to the Premier. I would rather have my officers out about in Boscombe tackling on-street drug dealing than actually down on the beach just waving and smiling, where I have to try and decide where best to put my officers in line with the demand and expectation of both my force and also the community.
I understand what you're saying, but I still think that public safety is important.
Okay, I think we've got a response there. Let's pass it ahead.
Inspector, I'm pretty new to the town. I've met Inspector Weeks, who's obviously come in and explained that you've got Operation Furlong running at the moment. I think people in the room are not aware of the undercover officers that are actually hard at work. They've been quite supportive. But I think there's quite a lot of issues surrounding police presence and PCSOs actually complying with visibility and actually what productivity they're bringing to the town centre. In terms of yesterday, I made a phone call to 101 and the response was an hour and 40 minutes for a possible pickpocketing incident. And that concerns me that it's took that long for someone to have gone through that. But also the phone calls and actually getting through to them, it can last at least 15, 20 minutes. For instance, I had an incident on Saturday evening with a guy who was drinking in the street, foully abusing myself on the front of my premises. We called 101. It took 45 minutes to get through. The guy had gone. I know that the cutbacks are centralised. There was £14 million worth of cutbacks over the last 2.5 years. I'm fully aware that the stretch of officers that you guys are facing is obviously hard, and this is certainly not a personal dig at yourself. It's just, for us as the community, it's nice to see the uniform and the smile, as the lady said, but we know that you've got to prioritise. But it doesn't help when you've got a few individuals, perhaps, that we can discuss afterwards, that are not performing and giving back to the community. And unfortunately, we are not seeing what our police force is there for. And it's concerning that there's violent crimes. I know in front of my place, Inspector Weeks is fully aware of the telephone box issue. And I'm watching crackheads, prostitution, drug dealing, and it's a continual basis. and we are supporting the police in that matter. We're doing what we can do. What are we going to get back? What is it the police strategy is going to give us back to defend ourselves against this crime with the reductions that we've got at the moment? How do you see in the future that the police are going to work hand in hand with the community forum as well as the business forums?
Okay. In relation to what could we do around 101, 101 comes up in every single forum. Like it was mentioned earlier, that has gone into the PCC. We continually strive to try and improve that service, but that's as much as really I can say at this moment in time on behalf of that service. The only thing I would mention is that the couple of incidents you described, and I mention this quite often, the type of 101 call is actually a non-urgent call. If you've got people outside your premises causing that level of concern, intimidation, my interpretation is that should be a 999 call. Okay? In relation to the stretch, I'm acutely aware of the stretch. That's the reason why one of my strategies when I first took over was to increase our special constabulary. I've now got 8. It takes a bit of training, and my anticipation and my hope and aspiration is to increase that even further. So as I say, that's certainly what we're trying to deliver to the community to increase that presence.
I'm aware of another premises that has used your advice and rung 999 and then been threatened with a fixed penalty enforcement for wasting time, and that was for an altercation in their bar, and that's something that's gone round to a lot of the publicans, and I personally wouldn't like to see getting a fine. What's your response to that?
Speak to me afterwards and I'll deal with that individually, but my advice stands.
How about someone said, a resident has said something to me who was going to be here tonight, along those same lines as that actually, that they were threatened with a fixed penalty notice for reporting a crime.
Inspector, you just told this lady here that you would prefer your officers to be somewhere else, but you told me earlier on your PCSOs can't make arrests and don't investigate crime. Would it not be better to put your PCSOs down on the beach with the 65,000 people and let the police officers that need to do the policing work do that? There's also 2 schemes that other police forces use. I've contacted your police force and you're not interested. One is called COPS. Are you aware of it? It's brought a 40% drop in crime around the country. Are you aware of it? It's called Canines on Patrol scheme. And what it is, there's so many dog walkers in the United Kingdom, including Bournemouth, as they walk around, they can tell when there's been fly tipping, criminal damage, bad behaviour, and they're given a number to contact. 101's not worth it. I'll tell you why 101's worth it. If you use a mobile phone, it's 35p a minute. It's not a standard call. Also, there's another scheme that the British Transport Police use. When you're in a crowded train and someone's threatening you and you pick up your mobile phone, they're going to notice you do it and go and kick your head in. So what the British Transport Police have got a texting service which they reply to, and they have police officers waiting on a platform at the next station, and they know where the person is and which carriage is in. Again, I asked your police force, why don't you do something? You've got less officers, I understand that, but isn't it about time you built bridges and trusted the public that you serve so they can, in other words, begin to trust you? Have something that will actually teach the public what you need. Tell them how they can help, and when they phone up and explain it, you said you had 30% crime rate actually dealt with through the courts. How many of those victims did you bother contacting and telling them that you'd taken to court? I've had a 100% failure rate from your police force when you've solved a crime, taken the person to court, and I've had to go and get a solicitor to go back after the victim, the person who did it, to take them to court because you've not bothered. And when I made a complaint, I too have been threatened. The only thing, as an MOD officer, all my phone calls are recorded. I've got Mr. Weeks on phone, Mark Kelly on phone, and several other police officers. They've now gone to a solicitor. I've asked you to contact me. You haven't bothered. It's your own fault.
Okay, I've never spoken to you. I've never received any communication from you.
You. I have spoken to Mr. Weeks, and also professional standards told me today they asked you to contact me, and you didn't.
Okay, I'm happy to speak to you outside this forum. Hopefully we
So
can't.
back in January when I brought up other issues, you said you'd speak to me at the end. You will try to pass me walked out.
I guarantee.
I contacted you since, and I asked your head your sergeant's in charge of the PCSOs, and he also has not responded to me.
I guarantee you, straight after this, we'll have a chat. In relation to your question again about public confidence, I come back to the quarterly surveys that come out for the whole of the community of this area. Okay? It is not 100% all the way through. And I'd like to try and achieve that, but I'm a realist. However, what I will say is, I still expect my PCSOs to conduct themselves professionally and a full range of responsibilities. I'm very proud of my PCSOs. If there's anyone that you think is underperforming, again, let me know. But I need facts, details, dates, etc. I'm not going to stand here. You are my community, and I will do my level best to serve you.
Okay, I think we've make sure you two will talk afterwards. We're going to have to move on fairly soon. We'll take 2 questions, and then I think when Martin Underhill comes, we'll invite the police as well, and we'll allow a bit more time to that, because crime's always a big issue in the Boscombe Forum. Here we go.
Thank you. Many of us over a period of time have been pressing for a visual police base in the centre of Boscombe town centre, which we are going to get in the old Argus site. Could you tell me what hours this police centre base is going to be open, and will there be a big sign, this is police base, all over Boscombe that signifies where you are? Thank you.
Chris, can I bring you up to answer that question, because you're part of that whole process?
Good evening, Chris Weeks, Boscombe Regeneration Inspector. The Argos project, really exciting, right in the heart of where that policing footprint needs to be. Ultimately, it's going to be exactly the same operating procedure as the Boscombe Police Station. Quite simply, it's an operational hub where the police team will operate from. There will be a reception front door on Christchurch Road, but the opening hours generally will be when the officers are there. We can't publicise, but it's going to operate from 9 till 5 and Monday to Friday, because actually there's been a decision from very high up that contact management at that level that can't be maintained. So quite simply, if you need to speak to the police, if the door isn't open, there'll be that yellow contact phone there that you can utilise to contact us. So I can't suggest it will be open any more than the current Boscombe Police Station. It's an operational base, and ultimately that yellow phone if the door isn't open.
Okay, I'll just take the last question from over here, and then.
Going back briefly to the crime figures, you said that overall they had gone down. Were there any categories where they'd gone up?
Thank you.
Okay, basically we've got violence against the person went up, robbery stayed the same, burglary other, which relates to shed breaks, beach hut theft, that sort of thing, that went down by 10%.
What was the figure on the assaults on people?
Assaults on people, 1,000, well, it's not actually assaults on people, this is something, it's a piece of work I've had looked into. The crime classifications that fall within this crime figure involves a whole host of type offences, like harassment and non-molestation orders, etc. So these figures don't actually represent assaults on people. It's just under a whole host of classifications under the title of violence against the person.
What was the percentage you said it's gone up? What was the percentage it's gone up, please?
That went up by just short of 30%. But a lot of that, we had the figures broken down. Underneath that type of heading, we have assault with injury, harassment, common assault, assault with injury to a constable, assault with intent to harm, threats to kill, stalking, cruelty to young people, racially aggravated common assault, false imprisonment, murder, attempted murder, child stealing, and kidnapping. So that's your full range of offences that fall underneath those figures.
And that's a 5-year figure, is it? Sorry, or is that
That was a year figure.
There's one figure you've left out there according to your website, which is crimes against women, which is sex assaults has gone up drastically.
Say that again?
Sex assaults on women has gone up drastically according to your website this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately I'm not in that area of specialism. We have a dedicated unit for that, and we perhaps just have someone to come along and speak in the next forum if needed.
Yeah, I think that you know, the particularly this violence figure is something that it does concern people. It's quite good that we've actually had that spelled out, and I think it's very important that we cover this subject more fully with Martin Underhill here as well. Did you want to say a couple of Chris Weeks wanted to say a couple of other things?
Just literally a couple of requests, if I could. The general area of the precinct near the police box, you've got 4 telephone boxes all situated in the same place. From a policing perspective, it seems to attract old antisocial behaviour and on-street drug dealing, and so for that matter we're trying to get some community support generated to ask BT quite simply if they'll move them, get rid of them from there, because actually we're not completely satisfied that they're that well utilised. A compromise position might be a different style of phone box. So rather than having 4 telephone boxes, perhaps just 1 or 2 what they call tulip style phones, which you can see in Bournemouth Town Centre, which is a more of an open approach to public telephones. So if anyone's prepared to give us their support, if they could email into the forum, if that's okay with yourself, Harry.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, they can also put stuff on the Facebook as well, but yeah, email the forum.
And literally Harry can collate that and pass it to myself, and it will help us a degree of strength to move forward to try and, as I said, get rid simply of what I consider to be quite an eyesore really within the precinct area. And lastly, there's a lot of work going on street drug dealing from ourselves, which involves a police tactic of stop and search. I'm trying to generate a degree of interest in community, being the local community, having a degree of sort of critical friend approach to that policing tactic. So if anyone would be interested in working alongside this, and it would entail a little bit of observation of us actually going on patrol and possibly using that tactic, and then ultimately perhaps debriefing it within a group environment at a later date. So if anyone here is interested in doing that, they can either contact me directly, and I'll make sure my email address is on the backboard, I think it was held up earlier, or of course an email into Harry or the forum just to suggest you'd be interested. I just think the better spread of people and opinion we get would just be very useful. So that's my 2 requests, please.
Okay, we've got you can email the forum by clicking through the website, or if you want to send us a message on Facebook, and we have a feedback form on there as well if you want to raise any new issues.
My personal experience regards actually working with the GLA and also Borough Council is that where finances are stretched with regards to police, the council has the remit and also the authority to find where there are hotspots within the community to actually take from their own budget to pay for additional, actually additional police. So that comes out of not police funding, but actually out of council's funding. And if it is the case very much so that Boscombe is showing a high rise in certain sort of crime, the council has the authority and also has the jurisdiction and finances to actually police and over police.
And again, I don't think it'd be right or proper for me to answer that question now, but Police Crime Commissioner Martin Underhill, hopefully at the next meeting, will be able to give you an answer in relation to that very broad Dorset police question. Thank you.
Well, we'll chase up Martin Underhill and we'll try and get him in for the next meeting. Yeah, I missed it there actually. Okay, thank you very much to the police for that. That was a bit longer than you thought. I thank the police for attending us. I think it's very important that the police attend at each forum, especially as this area, crime is a very big issue and the perception of crime is very high as well.